Slavoj Žižek, welcome to Spectator TV. Now, in The Spectator this week, you highlight the despair of Palestinians, not just in Gaza, but within the West Bank as well. Now, many have sought to explain the Hamas attacks within the context of occupation and colonial struggle. Now, in your view as a philosopher, does this despair ever justify violence of any kind? And in your article, you try to give this context, but does that mean that you're excusing or justifying this violence yourself?
No, my position was here very clear because I was accused, yes, that I, in a more refined, twisted way, that I somehow justify the Hamas violence. And then the idea was even, no, at this tragic moment, we don't speak about complexity. It's just, we should be shocked at what happened. I agree, absolutely. But there is a but. But I took the example of Hitler, my God. There are dozens of books explaining the background, which was the confused situation of suffering of ordinary Germans and so on, that was exploited by Hitler, by the Nazis to grab power. And it's, for me, a similar thing that has to be done with the Hamas attack. I unconditionally condemn it. I even wrote, Israel has not only the right to defend itself, but also the right to annihilate Hamas. But what really worries me is that Hamas on the Palestinian side and the present government of Israel on the Israeli side are really doing something that one cannot but call, following that metaphor, it takes two to tango. These are two radical stances. I'm not equalizing them in the sense of evil and so on. But nonetheless, these are two comparable stances in the sense that each of them wants to get rid of, annihilate the enemy. Hamas said clearly, kill the Jews should be thrown out, the Jews don't belong here. The hardliners around Netanyahu are saying the same. This is primarily our land, it's exclusively our land. Where does this leave Palestinians? Of course, it is pushing them to despair. So I even went a step further and said that from Hamas we got a totally inexcusable, violent attack. But from the other side, look, for me it's more crucial than Gaza. Look what is now happening on the West Bank. It's what one cannot but call gradual ethnic cleansing with constant violence of settlers against Palestinians there. And it's not just a gentle violence. People are killed, beaten to death, and so on. And it's not something that happened now after October the 7th. It's going on permanently. And even the United States voiced their serious concern about this. So, what I am afraid is that both extreme sides, hardliners in Israeli government and Hamas, are in some sense echoing each other and objectively, not subjectively, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, they are supporting each other. Let's face it, the inexcusable attack on Gaza served the government of Israel perfectly to divert attention from what is going on the West Bank and to proceed with much greater speed now towards gradual ethnic cleansing on the West.
Sorry, Slavoj, what do you mean the inexcusable attack on Gaza? Do you mean the October 7th attacks on...
No, sorry, I meant, the Hamas attack.
Yes, yeah.
yeah, to be clear here, which again, this is not, as I was often accused, this is not just a formal condemnation so that I can then proceed to Israel bashing. No, I knew people who knew people who were slaughtered by Hamas there. As we all know, the paradox is that these were people who were absolutely open to Palestinians having the Jewish settlers who were slaughtered, having contact with Gaza all the time, helping Gaza, and so on and so on. So the message of Hamas attack was clear. They were not killed because they stood for the worst of Israeli militarism. No, they were peace-loving Jews. They were killed, and the message was no peace with Jews. War to the end. So again, I have no illusions here about Hamas. It's a fundamentalist terrorist organization. But I think here problems emerge that what is going on the West Bank especially, for years now, this constant pressure, and you can find numerous podcasts on YouTube and so on, because Palestinians also have iPhones and so on, which make you sick. Settlers protected, even supported by Israeli police and military units, terrorized, focused, for example, on a Palestinian household on a farm, threatened them, beat them, also kill them. After October 7th, only over 150 Palestinians were killed in such operations, and Israel does nothing. So here is the tragedy for me, how both sides raise tension. Of course, by endlessly showing, repeating these images of the horrors of the Hamas attack, which Israel, of course, has the full right to do. Israel, what I'm afraid it is doing is that instead of using this as a unique chance of peace, instead of saying to Palestinians, Hamas is out, but now here is what we offer you on the West Bank, at least. No, they are using this to raise to a higher level the brutal tension, pushing Palestinians there into despair. And what worries me at least as much as this, and here I simply rationally don't understand what Israel is doing, it is that by this inexcusably brutal attack on Gaza, yes, Hamas has to be annihilated, but the way Israel is doing it with exploding numbers of so-called collateral damage, children, and so on, can you even imagine what this is doing to anti-Semitism? What a new boost this is giving to anti-Semitism.
Slavoj Žižek, how is it possible to annihilate Hamas, as you say, in Gaza without, when it's such a densely populated area, and we do suspect that Gaza, that Hamas has crucial infrastructure under civilian infrastructure in tunnels in Gaza? You know, if you're in the Israeli government, how is it possible to annihilate Hamas, as you say, without that kind of casualty? I mean, we now see that that kind of bombardment has allowed ground forces to go into and surround Gaza City. Without it, the IDF couldn't be doing what it's doing right now.
Oh, no, I mean, I know, I'm not saying it's an easy solution, but to do it a little bit more, not gradually in the sense of prolonging it for months and so on, but okay, let me give you one example. You remember now, it must be already 2-3 weeks ago, when Israel, for the first time, gave 24-hour chance to citizens of northern Gaza, of the Gaza city, to move south. Now, wasn't this an absolutely absurd proposal? 1.2 million people, many of them in hospitals, pregnant women, and so on, cannot simply move to outside. How? How should this be done? So what I'm saying is, yes, one has to destroy Hamas, but isn't there also a limit to so-called collateral damage? There should be a way which I find even relatively easy to imagine. For example, okay, you surround Gaza, then you establish slowly safety corridors where, of course, you check people and so on. There is a whole network of procedures which could be done. I think it's which could make the operation much more human. Otherwise, isn't it a little bit too simple? Okay, I don't trust the Palestinian numbers, but for sure, many more people died in Gaza than in the Israeli attack. And on the other hand, I agree that the situation is complex, how Hamas is in a terrifying way using people as a shield, and so on and so on. But isn't there nonetheless a limit to saying, okay, we killed one terrorist and I don't know what would be the number, 30, 40 innocent Palestinians, children dead are just collateral damage. It's a too easy solution for me. In a more gradual way, it could have been done.
You're the philosopher here.
Sorry?
You're the philosopher here, and what you're talking about this kind of calculus of how much lives are worth. What do you think? What should be guiding? What is the balance to be struck here when you've got these objectives? And I hear what you're saying about the Netanyahu government, and I think a lot of liberal secular Israelis before October 7th would have agreed with you on disagreeing with Netanyahu's government. But what is the balance to be struck? Are you providing answers here?
Sorry?
Are you providing answers in terms of how... Yes, in terms of how the government should be dealing with it instead?
But why... This is already typical. Why do we focus on Gaza? I think the real thing now is happening on the West Bank. Much intensified what one cannot but call ethnic cleansing there. Why Israel, one way for Israel to provide a different message to Palestinians would be to stop the ethnic cleansing on the West Bank. And
to show that another way is possible.
At the same time, to give,
to show that another way is possible.
Yeah. This is the only way for me to fully justify, and it can be justified, the attack on Gaza. At the same time, you have to show exactly the Palestinians there is another way. Or, as somebody who certainly cannot be accused of being pro-Hamas, Yuval Noah Harari said, we have to offer Palestinians who don't support terror, who are not anti-Semitic, we have to offer them a clear way how to live freely and in a dignified way in their own homeland. This is the term used by Harari. Or look at what, for example, other Israeli politicians, more liberal, have said, that the key, the underlying tension is the unresolved Palestinian question. On the one hand, I don't buy this pseudo-leftist version of what Israel is doing there is simply neocolonialism, colonizing a country. No, Jewish people have a certain right to the land, but not exclusive right. But so do Palestinians. The only way to resolve again. The point is now, from the side of Israel, to offer Palestinians a clear hope, not just to put pressure on them. And again, I agree with you. It is problematic to set a clear limit, how much collateral damage and so on and so on. I'm only saying, obviously, it should have been possible to do it in a better, more considerate way, if for no other reason, for the incredible damage that this is doing to Jews all around. Can you imagine what impression these constant images of children being killed in Gaza and so on, what they will do to the explosion of anti-Semitism?
Slavoj Žižek, I'm afraid that's all we have time for. Thank you so much for joining Spectator TV.